Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. This gentleman coaches people on how to be more effective leaders. And that's just a piece of what he coaches on, but that's kind of his wheelhouse there. His company's called coachingforrelevance.com. And one of the best things you can do as a leader, stand behind your team. We're going to illustrate that and so much more today as we are joined by Randy Swaim. Welcome back, Randy. How you doing?
Doing good. Glad to be here with you again and look forward to our time today.
Yeah, always learn a lot, get some insight. And all of us, we're all leaders in some regards. We're leading ourselves, leading our family, but we're also leading teams at work. And this, for you today, getting us into this topic starts with a movie, doesn't it?
Yeah, and in fact, it is actually centered in, because what we'll talk about today, my friend, is very rooted in the organizational maneuverability concept that is trademarked for me out of Washington. And really, it's a concept that a lot of people don't realize about it. It's not just rote academic facts. And you've heard me say this on the show a few times along the way and everything. But organizational maneuverability deals with aspects of, leading your teams in situations that are not just rote academic, where you don't just shut your brain off and do something. And so it'll kind of bring one subtle aspect to that was kind of highlighted in this movie, even though they didn't realize that's what they were doing. But it was a very good picture of it. So I'll kind of use that as a picture, but then I'll kind of expound on it just a little bit.
I believe there are no coincidences, and kind of interesting, as we're doing this today, it is the day after Election Day, and you're referring to the movie The Patriot, man. Yeah, just thinking out loud.
And I'm not meaning politics on it, but I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
just about it. Yeah,
wasn't planned that way, and I don't engage in political conversations either.
Yeah.
Why does that movie resonate so well for you?
Well, I like what it stands for. And of course, most people, I think, are aware of the movie, but it obviously talks about the revolutionary time period back 300 years ago, in the 1700s, where this country became a country and won its independence and was able to create itself as a nation. And when you look at a lot of what we are right now, that's a good step in growth, kind of thing and all that. But I like the aspect of the movie and a lot of what it stood for. I know Mel Gibson was the leading actor in it, and I like the character that he portrayed and all. And
we just lost him there. Things froze up, which can happen technologically speaking. All right, I believe we have to take a break. Unless Randy comes back sometime very soon. I don't know what happened there, but we're going to break and we will be right back.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. The IRS just rolled out a new program to help struggling taxpayers more easily resolve their tax problems. It's called the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, and it opens up powerful new options for people looking to get back on the right track with the IRS. And no one knows this program like the professionals at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution company. They've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients and have the expertise and experience to help you. One easy call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries of wage garnishment, asset seizure.
You can hear me, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I can't hear you, but you froze, so I went to a break. So we'll edit and we'll just come back.
Okay, so can you hear me now?
I can't hear you right here.
Oh no.
99.45.
Because I've got everything on here.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
All right, we are back. I don't know what happened.
Because my audio is back on.
Yeah, you just froze for a second.
Okay, so you can hear me now?
Yeah, all good.
Okay,
it was just
good deal.
Last second there, we were just talking about the movie and its connection with you and what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And if you want, I'll go ahead and kind of expand into the concept and everything, because when I was watching the movie, I didn't watch the whole thing. I was just going through some of the channels, and I just saw the last, probably 15 minutes of the movie kind of thing. But there was one thing, I'll point out the one thing. There's two key points that I want to bring out, but one I brought out in shows before, and this will just sort of highlight that in one aspect. But then I'll expand it into the other aspect that sometimes people kind of don't really see or perceive when they see it. And so I'll just kind of mention that. But the scene was, remember at the end of the movie, there was a case where they were trying to fight against the enemy to win the battle and all that kind of stuff. And what one thing that happened was that remember that his unit, who were mostly volunteers, got very afraid and actually were running away from the battle kind of thing. And one of the things that the character that Mel Gibson was playing did is he ran up to the one that was holding the flag, and he grabbed the flag from him, and he yelled, follow me. And he ran up to kind of the top of the hill there where there was a structure and everything. And he just went up there like this and had the flag going back. And what's interesting is that, one of the things, that I've said on the show a few times, and anybody listening probably has heard me say this, but there are times, and I've given some examples, there are times when you have to stand in for your people. And what a lot of times that doesn't mean tell them what to do. What that means is step in and model it, step in and represent it and activate it and stuff, so that people get a chance to see you on that. And what was amazing is a lot of people kind of forget about that. But in fact, I've mentioned, and I mentioned a couple of times in my autobiography too, there's a couple of times that I learned from really good leaders, and I watched ways how they did it within their teams and in our team. And there's a couple of small times in my professional journey where I've had to do that. And one time that I shared in my autobiography in my personal life where I had to really do that, even though it didn't always give the results I was wanting for myself, but it was the right thing to do at the time, and it made a tremendous difference. And so there are times when you got to step in and model it and represent it and show your team, not just tell them what to do, not just threaten them if you don't do this, but but to actually model that for your team as you run forward. And so that was the first thing that I saw in there, which was really good too, that it's just one example of some things that I brought where leaders have to stand in the gap for their team sometimes. And sometimes if your team is feeling beat down, you've got to go up there and model it. You've got to show them. You've got to represent the courage, the ability to step forward and all of that. And so it's just one aspect when you're talking about leading your team in an unpredictable VUCA environment, which I think variable, uncertain, changing, and adaptive, kind of thing. Things aren't always just very, simple and academic and all that kind of stuff, but to help them get a sense for how that works. So that was the first thing that I thought that scene really stood out. But here's the second thing that made it really stand out, because right after it showed him up there waving the flag like this, the camera went back. Now, honestly, this was just recreating a scene in a movie, but the people, the directors, and probably did not fully understand the true value of the understanding of this image, because what they did is they showed a picture of the people that were on his team that were standing there, and several of them, while they saw the flag up there doing that, they were raising their hand and going, yeah, and they're getting fired up, kind of thing. And that gives them their the passion for continuing on and everything. And so a lot of times when you step in right, you can create that in your people. But here's the thing that a lot of people didn't realize, and when you're talking about this aspect of emotions, And that's where they did this correctly in how they represented it on the movie. Now, they probably didn't think about this when they were creating the scene, but when you're talking about emotions in your team, one of the things that a lot of sort of dysfunctional managers do in working with teams today, there's a sense where people just want to get them fired up. And it doesn't matter what the specific focus is on their team or on their, strategy or their vision and their, what they're trying to accomplish and everything. But even in businesses, a lot of times you find dysfunctional managers that are trying to just fire up the emotions. But here's the thing, and I'll share one or two quick things with you, and then I'll share why that scene was different than that, and why that scene was accurate and correct, kind of thing. Because one of the things that happens is if you're just going from what you're trying to do to fire up emotions, what you're doing, the emotions are firing up apart from anything they're envisioning and thinking in their mind and in their picture and in their strategic vision and things of that nature. And what can happen on that is you're having them shut their brain off. They're just relating back to the vision because that's what our boss wants us to be. And guess what? A lot of people think that if you get your emotions high enough, you can accomplish anything. Not true. Not always. Sometimes the resistance, sometimes the thing you got to struggle with is huge. And it can't totally overcome just because your emotions. And if you understand the concept of neuroscience, which obviously, as you know, I'm a master level certified neuroplastician. If you understand neuroscience and how the brain works, if you're going to fire up the emotions without doing it correctly, you're not getting the job done. But here's the thing. When you're talking about the emotions, it's not that you want to just fire up the emotions right this second from you, but what you want to do is create their mental picture, their mental belief, their mental focus, their vision, their understanding, and their belief in the possibility. And when your brain gets into that and gets into this real synergy and gets into this real aspect of clarity on the vision, and you know what? I think we can do this. And your brain starts thinking that, your brain can generate the emotions when it releases the chemicals on that. And when it looked at this picture here, that's what was really truthful there, because when the camera went back to the people in the line there, kind of thing, the reason that their emotions got fired up is they knew what they were there for. They knew what the goal was, and they saw their leader up on that little hill representing it. And so they had clarity on that. So the bottom line is the emotions can happen there, but what you want to do is not have the emotions controlled by you externally. What you want to do is have their brain and their thinking and their processing ability fired up in such a way that that generates their emotions because they understand it. And that's the functional way of truly getting it done to help some amazing things happen. And bottom line is, if you do that, if you do it that way, guess what? And of course, that was in a battle scene. Not much of what we do on a day-to-day basis of business is a battle scene. But if for some reason they're performing and you have a heart attack in your office or something, and you die and you're not there anymore, they can still perform. If you have generated their emotions and their emotions are totally dependent on you and what you're saying and doing, their possibilities just kind of went the way of the buffalo. And so when you think about leading teams and you understand this neuroscience application and this neuroscience aspect of what you as a leader need to do, it's not just about firing up their emotions. It's about making them see the vision, the strategy, the picture, the goal, what the value is of that. And that within their own mind can generate the emotional part of it to get them to want to do it. And that's a very key difference that a lot of people in society don't have. And it's not just about firing up. And there are guest speakers out there that just want to fire up everybody's emotions. Why? Because it sort of makes them feel good.
Hmm.
But you know what? If you fired up the emotions externally without any of the real, mental processing in the brain, then that can become a problem. Because here's the thing: if you want to do it successfully and you want to do it where it lends to success and them truly overcoming stuff, the emotions don't happen because you fired it up. The emotions happen because their brain got involved and they became a real picture of it. And the emotions got fired up from their brain, releasing the chemicals to let that happen. And that's what a lot of people, kind of forget about. And that's what I found very interesting in the movie, because, those guys got fired up and were raising their fists and yeah, and all this kind of stuff. Why? Because the flag was up at the top of the hill there with the leader doing this, and he didn't specifically say anything. He modeled something, and it changed the picture and the awareness in their mind and in their brain. And guess what? The brain can generate the emotional part of it, and you do that, and guess what? Amazing things can happen. But if you think that you're generating the emotions just so you can control them and tell them what to do and everything, you're bypassing the mental processing, and you're shutting off their brain so that they don't if a factor comes on scene that they didn't expect, they may get lost, they may get beat down or something like that. And so it's very interesting. I found that interesting in the movie. Every time I've ever watched it, which the last time I watched the whole movie was many years ago. It was before I knew a lot about neuroscience and everything. But after my neuroscience awareness, when I saw that one scene there, I said, oh, yeah, that's right. Even though the directors probably didn't realize what they were showing. But that is huge, because that is a critical difference when you're talking about trying to make your team successful in an unpredictable, rapidly changing VUCA environment. And if you're bypassing the brain and just trying to generate their emotions so that they are just going to give in to you regardless of whatever, guess what? That may not be successful, and it's not going to get you where you want to be. So it's just, I just found it interesting that it's a very simple point. We've talked before, as you know, Steve, we've talked before about the fact that leaders have to stand in the gap for their people and step forward and sometimes do things and model and sometimes make their people believe in them. And if you think about it, in that particular scene, when Mel Gibson grabbed the flag and went running forward on his own, what he was communicating was he believes that his team is going to follow him and be engaged, kind of thing. And they were in the movie and everything. So the bottom line is, it's just one aspect, if you think about it from a leadership standpoint, that you got to, as a leader, you got to kind of get in the gap, stand in the gap for your teams. Like I mentioned, I think there's been a show quite a while back where I shared one example from my commander at the 107th Fighter Group up at Niagara Falls, kind of thing. But I've also shared a couple of simple points where I've done that with my team at Griffiths Air Force Base, and also stuff. But in my autobiography, I actually included a real big kind of picture that when you think about that aspect of leadership, it doesn't mean you're always getting just what you want and all the pleasure and all the pats on the back or whatever, but you're doing it in such a way that your people are totally overcome and engaged and can get the job done. But again, when you look at this aspect of the emotions, if all you're doing is externally firing up their emotions so that you can control the emotions, guess what? You're not really getting the job done, because you're bypassing their awareness and their processing ability. But if you do it in such a way where they mentally process the awareness and all of that, then that gets their emotions fired up. Now you're doing something that's very reasonable and can be very successful. So I just found that interesting from excuse me, from that one movie there. And this, like I said, this brings not only good leadership in and good leadership strategy in, but it also brings in aspects of neuroscience and how the body and the chemicals really create success, and some subtle ways where managers can take that success and just throw it in the trash because they're just trying to raise their emotions from their side and external so you can control them. And that's just something to think about when you're talking about that aspect of the emotions in a rapidly changing, unpredictable environment.
I had no idea that you run, and we've talked about neuroscience before, but your qualifications for it, I had no idea it ran that deep. Whoa.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You know what? And I'll tell you what, I've been lauded by the guy that's a friend of mine that's a founding member of the Institute for Organizational Neuroscience, and he's actually commended me for my knowledge and for kind of how I apply it and things like that and stuff. But it is, yeah, I'm actually certified by them as a master level neuroplastician. And so I understand how the brain gets in, how it processes the different parts of the brain, the frontal lobe processing, the cerebellum being just habit patterns and stuff, but also how your brain releases chemicals and which chemicals it releases for various things. And a lot of leaders and a lot of managers today have no understanding about that whatsoever. They think their job is to just point fingers and tell people what to do, and you better get it done, kind of thing. And guess what? That doesn't get it there. And if all you're trying to do is fire up the emotions from your external aspect of it, bypassing the brain, you're not getting it done. You're putting your team at risk when you do that. But if you lead the team in such a way where their processing gets a real belief in you, in the team, in what you're trying to accomplish, despite the restrictions, despite the threats and all that, and that can generate the emotions from the inside that help you truly overcome. But it was just one little picture from that movie. When I saw it this time, I went, oh, you know what? That's a good analogy. No two ways about it. So that's, even though the directors didn't realize that when they made it.
As soon as you described that movie and the flag on the hill and the waving of the flag, right away, and I'm not like a huge movie buff, but as soon as you said that, you didn't even have to say Mel Gibson. I saw it in my mind of what a powerful scene really is.
Yeah.
Randy, I know that you're not somebody who pushes sales or anything like that. You're here as a resource to help people understand this, apply it, and move the team and their lives forward. Coachingforrelevance.com is the website. Go there. The contact information is there. You've got a fantastic book about your journey and details on the website there as well. And
if anybody wants to get the autobiography, if you go to my website on the homepage of it, when you're on the homepage for about 2.5 to 3 seconds, the book banner will come up and it shows a picture of the book, but right below that, it says, get your copy. And if you click on that, it takes you right to the Amazon page where you can get it if anybody wants to.
Awesome. Coachingforrelevance.com is the website.
That's right.
Always great having you here. Amazing what this does, and even more so when you better understand it through people like yourself.
Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. I'm humbled by it, but I appreciate that.
I appreciate you, and we'll catch up next time.
Sounds good. Well, look forward to it, my friend.
Thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.